we can be taken accountable for what we'll talk. Super. In between, sometimes I will have to switch a bit to here because I don't see when new people come in. So sorry for the inconvenience, but happy to have you all here and have a little bit of a Sunday Astro talk about quite an interesting subject. And if you have along the way any questions, please just unmute your microphone if possible. You can write it in the chat, but then I would ask someone else of you to unmute the microphone and tell me that something is in the chat, because in the setup which I am right now, I don't see all the time all the chat messages. But just feel free to interrupt me and ask your questions along the way. Also, in the end, we'll have a section for Q&A where we can expand a bit more. So during the course of this webinar, I will ask you to only address questions which are directly related with the subject that we are at this moment. So it can make sense and don't interrupt necessarily the flow of what we'll talk about. So what will we talk about actually? You can see it here in the headline, Call for Surrender. It sounds a bit drastic, but it's more like an invitation, we can say, because of a certain astrological moment that is happening right now. It's a bit of an expanded moment, which is happening over a course of a couple of days. But it's a moment where two of the more slow-moving planets are stationary. And stationary is a term in astrology, which means basically they are apparently stopping in their movement, which first of all is not really happening because it's all just from the perspective of the Earth. When a planet, so to say, is in the end of a cyclic movement and moving apparently backwards from us, but just is on the other end of the cycle, then for a short moment where it changes direction, it seems from the perspective of the Earth that it doesn't move. And so it's always marking a switch of direction. And all of you, I think, are familiar with the term of retrograde period. So stationary moments are always in front of the beginning of a retrograde period, when the planet is moving backwards. Or again, also after the retrograde period, when it's starting to move forward again, direct again, then of course also there's a change in direction and there's also stationary moment. So first of all, why are these stationary moments so important? Because when something is focused in one spot energetically, it's extremely amplified. This is the typical principle that you can find when you have, for example, a lens and you are bundling the rays of the sun in one spot. And of course, then it gets very hot and even can burn a piece of paper or whatever it is. And this is the principle of focus, of focusing the energy of anything into one spot. And this is happening right now. That means that in this moment, the energies of Saturn and Neptun are both tenfold amplified, you can say. It's not an exact number, but you get the point. It's very much amplified, that's the point. And of course, this becomes very relevant. If the slow-moving planets have this intense impulse of energy, it's always can create a certain effect for us in our life. And we can use it in a very beneficial way. But the interesting thing is, for this moment, because this is kind of happening more or less regularly, but now we have two planets, slow-moving planets, together in the same sign, in the same moment, having the stationary moment. And this is something rare. This is something that doesn't happen so often. This is something special that can, let's say, is asking of us to put a bit more attention in this direction, because there's hidden something for us that might be beneficial for us. And we will try in this 1 hour now that I kind of was estimating for this webinar to unravel what this moment actually is for us and how we can use it in a beneficial way for our evolution, for our transformation, and so forth. So I will quickly check. Aha, we have Bryn that is re-entering the room. So let's go back. So speaking a bit about the cycle of Neptune and Saturn. The cycle of two planets is described in their meeting points all the time when they're forming a conjunction. So when they're in the same degree of the zodiac meeting together, that's, so to say, when one cycle is closing of two planets. And each of these synodic cycles, as they're called, the cycles between especially the slow-moving planets, but also the other planets, they are marking certain evolutionary processes for our planet, for us individually as well, but these cycles, they're quite long. For example, this Neptune-Saturn cycle, to make a full round, it's over 300 years. If I'm not mistaken, it's 325 years, apparently. And this picture which we have here is quite an interesting one, because this is how it looks, basically, if you would draw the let's say the line after the movement of these two planets in the sky from the perspective of the Earth. Then they form this amazing mandalas, and it's really incredible to look in the other cycles as well. They're very, very beautiful, and they are quite significant, these cycles, and especially the meeting points of each of these planets. Especially now talking about the Saturn-Neptune cycle, when we look back, the last moment when they formed the conjunction was actually in the year 1989. So the fall of the Berlin Wall, for example, and with this, the let's say the deconstruction of the Soviet Union, and we can say maybe the fall of communism in that extent that followed after. So these, as we can see, these meeting points, these cyclic movements, they are always significant major happenings for the planet. Geopolitically, but also spiritually, there's always a certain evolution process which is happening, and we'll decipher a bit the meaning of Neptune and Saturn and see how this puts together. And as we can see, the fall of the wall symbolically is a perfect representation of the cycle, because Saturn, to take a bit of the meaning away, ahead, is very much connected with limitation, with structures that are actually building a limitation. Also, on the other hand, it's always has this double purpose of forming the limitation, but also transcending the limitation, showing the way beyond this. And Neptune shows, so to say, the process of reuniting the wave into the ocean again, and forming, let's say, moving further to universal connectivity, we can say, in that sense. So how East and West, yin and yang, they're again together. It's a very symbolically happening there. So the next exact conjunction is not yet, actually. It's not in this moment. They're quite close, but Neptune and Saturn, they are, even though they're in the same sign in Pisces, they're not forming an exact conjunction. They're actually 10 degrees apart at the moment. And for such transits, 10 degrees is quite a bit, let's say. But it is, we can say, a certain precursor of the exact conjunction that will happen later on. And as we can see here, the Saturn conjunction will happen twice. Once it will happen in July next year, in 2025, but there it will still be within half a degree apart. But then the exact moment when they meet, it will be in 2026 in February. And this is the major point that we are kind of at the moment moving towards to this moment of February 2026, because there Neptune and Saturn, they will meet in 0 degrees in Aries. And as Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, it is always marking the beginning of a new cycle. And it's a big beginning. And as we can see from the size of the event that is happening, we can compare it with, for example, the fall of the Berlin Wall. And many more happenings. I am not going now fully in the history of all the moments that when this conjunction was happening, but it's very interesting to study if you go back to see this. But this will explode a bit our frame that we have set right now here. So as this cycle is closing, kind of approaching, because from the astrological point of view and from the size of the cycle, in these 2 years that we are kind of in front now, or even less than 2 years, 1.5 years, it's not that much. It's actually quite close before, so to say. So we are now in the preparatory phase before that, finishing, cleaning up the last bits of the old cycle, so to say. And this impulse, which is happening right now, is, so to say, a big part of revisiting the old of the last cycle and finalizing certain aspects of it. That is kind of the theme of what is happening right now. So as you can see right now, June 2024, it's a loose conjunction and 10 degrees apart. But even in, for example, in the Vedic astrology, just if 2 planets are in the same sign, they use, for example, the whole sign house system, it is very significant because, of course, being together in the same sign, they have a very similar, alike resonance in this regard. So we can say there is the typology of a conjunction happening, that they are uniting in the same spot. So let me briefly, in the beginning now, go back to see. All right. It seems like we are the people that we are, no new people. So let's look a bit at the 2 different parts that are involved here. So one, we have the Saturn in Pisces part, and then we have the Neptune in Pisces part, to deconstruct a bit the meaning of what is happening right now. So the cycle of Saturn, like a full cycle, is of course the 28, 29 years, as we know. When we talk, for example, about our Saturn return, which is happening around this age, this is as long as Saturn needs to make one whole round around the zodiac. But Saturn takes about 2.5 to 3 years to pass through one of the zodiac signs. It's one chapter, so to say, one partial chapter. And these partial chapters, they are very relevant on the global sphere of our society and humanity in total, but also individually. And of course, for us to give it a bit more detail for us, how it actually affects ourselves, for us it's very relevant to study in our own chart in which part of the chart is falling, in which astrological house. This will give much, much more insights about the actual effect in our being, in our life, of these transits, of these periods. But to give you a general overview about what it is, always the Saturn cycle is about developing a deeper state of spiritual maturity. A deeper state of spiritual maturity in regard to the specific subject, either the house through which it is transiting in our own chart, or also regarding the zodiac sign. Saturn has the typology of, yeah, someone wanted to say something? No, okay, just a breather. So Saturn has the typology of confronting us with our limitation. The planet Saturn or in Greek mythology, Kronos, who is also the god of time, for example. So time is very much related with Saturn as well. Is the one that is governing, so to say, our passage towards transcendent reality. It's governing the passage from individuality to universality. For example, Saturn is also the last planet that is easily observed with just our physical eye. In a certain, let's say, very lucky moments, it is possible to see the next planet, Uranus, as well. But let's say in most circumstances, it's only Saturn. And this is very symbolic because Saturn is describing the limited physical reality. So to say, the physical manifestation, the visible manifestation that we can see, and is forming a certain limit, a certain boundary around it, a certain wall, we can say. And in these transits of Saturn, when Saturn is moving through something, we're confronted with a limitation in regard to that astrological sign that we are still yet to need to overcome. This is why Saturn is not so widely appreciated, and also in historically, it was called in old scriptures the Great Malefic, for example, because it's a confrontation with our ego limitations, and people don't like this, so they call him the bad guy. But of course, that's not pretty accurate, let's say, because Saturn's job is not to generate suffering, because it is holding our face that what we have to transform, even though it is often how we perceive it. But nevertheless, it is the one that is helping us to overcome it. Because without bringing it in our awareness, what is it that we have to overcome? It will be quite difficult to actually do the steps necessary. So Saturn is invoking in us, or helping us to invoke also the necessary discipline to follow up, to take action upon it. It is very much a concrete type of energy. It is not at all connected with, let's say, just the idea, just the wish, the hope to overcome the limitation. It goes down to very concrete, pragmatic, practical reality. Kind of the opposite of Saturn, the antagonist, we can say, is Jupiter, that is much more related with the vision, with the ideal, so to say, with the perspective where we want to go, with the knowledge that comes. But then Saturn is the guy that helps us to actually do it, to actually take it on, to actually become an integral being in that sense. So that's always the job of Saturn. And of course, in certain areas, in certain timings, we will individually, for us, perceive this transit of Saturn more than in other times, because it will cross over certain parts in our astrogram, in our chart, that are more relevant, let's say, where we have some planets that are playing a more significant role in our being, for example. And in these moments, the Saturn energy will be more present for us. But then there are times when it is quite present for almost all of us. For example, when it makes major conjunctions with other planets, or when certain cycles finish, for example, when it's transiting in the next sign, for example, like this, or in moments as we have it right now, when it's stationary, for example, and kind of bundling its energy, because even if you have no spectacular things going on in this part of your chart, where Saturn is at the moment, which is about 19 degrees in Pisces, you can check if you have your chart somewhere, you can check, okay, 19 degrees of Pisces, what is going on around this area, then you have some insights about it. But even if you have nothing there, there is actually nothing as nothing in the chart, because each part has a certain zodiac sign, a certain house related with it. So there's always happening something. But if you are bundling its energy, with the lens and kind of amplifying its influence tenfold times, then sooner or later everyone will notice something is happening right now. For example, it can be perceived as being confronted a bit more with our limiting lesson, so to say, with the aspects that we haven't overcome yet. In that sense, they will be a bit more predominant, a bit more obvious, even for the ones that are not, let's say, very reflective. They will notice. Of course, you can also be very oblivious and look away very actively. Then you will manage also to not perceive it, but it's a bit difficult. So the period where Saturn is crossing through this Saturn Pisces from 2023 to 2026, it's in a way kind of also a closing of the cycle, as Pisces is the 12th sign, and always when it's the 12th sign is finishing, the cycle is closing again. But just to give a brief kind of perspective upon the resonance of the sign of Pisces, the 12th sign always has something to do with finishing and closing. This whole sign, this whole circle of the zodiac, from Aries to Pisces, is actually a journey from individuality to universality, from the perception of our individual consciousness and the perception of us being integrated in the universal consciousness. Each of these segments, each of these parts play their role. It's not as this is more important than the other one. Each one plays an important role in the development of our consciousness. But regarding the Pisces energy, it is about our capacity to fully surrender our individuality into the universality. And the best kind of picture or metaphor that can be taken is exactly that regarding the ocean, the drop that is, or the wave that is reuniting in the ocean. And for a short period, the individuality or the distinction between the different drops of water or waves, it seems like they have an individual consciousness and a persona, or even some characteristics. Some waves, they are a bit more sharp than others. Some are bigger and some are smaller, and whatever it is, so to say. But then it is only for a short period in time. Until then, they will completely surrender again into the totality. And that is this process, so to say, this attitude, we can say, because the zodiac signs, they represent a certain attitude of being. And this attitude of surrendering, of giving ourselves back to the ocean, this is what the Pisces typology is about. I was also writing here freedom of suffering, because the suffering, as it is represented in spiritual traditions, is because of the source of our limited perception of the of our belief, so to say, that we are the small wave. And this is this kind of false perception of reality, as it's called asmita, for example, the false perception of the self, is the source of all the suffering, as it is described. And then, of course, the logical conclusion is, if we then again unite again back with the ocean, then it is the freedom of suffering in that sense. So this attitude is what frees us of suffering. There is, let's say, a lower aspect of Pisces, which we can fall into, which is the tendency of escapism. Because we feel, okay, we don't want the suffering of individuality, but we are not taking the right steps to letting go of it. But then we blind ourselves with other influences to don't feel the suffering. So this is the tendency of narcotic numbing of our system with whatever it is, with social media, with drugs, and so on, with all kind of input, so to say, that is distracting us. And this is one lower aspect of the Pisces energy. We always have to be aware of these lower tendencies, but it's not what we should focus on, because it is much more valuable for us to transfigurate each of these aspects in their highest potential. And this is where our attention should go. This is where our focus should go, because it's there. So combining this 3 years approximately of Saturn and Pisces, it's about being confronted in ourselves with the limiting structures, Saturn, in our system that prevent us of letting go, of fully surrendering, of doing this process. So for all of us, this kind of a confrontation with, okay, where do we still struggle to fully surrender ourselves back into the ocean, like this. To give you an overview over this cycle right now. So if you have questions, so I will briefly check again like this, but if you have any questions, then let me know. Otherwise, we will move on. So Saturn retrograde. As I said, there are always periods when the planets apparently move backwards, and they are quite significant periods. Because, of course, even though they don't really move backwards, for the actual effect of the astral influence of the planets towards Earth, so towards us, is real. Because there is a difference if energetically, something is moving, let's say, from right to left or from left to right. These are not insignificant factors for us, because it is a reverse of polarity, we can say, that these energies have the effect of us. So it's a switch of poles, so to say. And it's very different if the planet, so to say, approaches us in its yang forward approach or in its yin reflective backwards approach, as the retrograde periods are connected with. So the retrograde period is starting from now, actually from yesterday, until the mid of November. So this is the period that Saturn is retrograde. And now in this moment, as the switch is happening for approximately 2 days before, 2 days after, in some cases a bit less, a bit more narrowed, 1 day before, 1 day after. So now, this is what we call stationary, when it's apparently not moving, because the cycle is returning. So this is what is happening right now. But in general, when Saturn is moving backwards, retrograde, this is a phase period. And this is now important, because this is what is about to happen. So this is relevant for us right now. It's a period of revisiting the old. This is always what is connected with moving backwards. It's moving symbolically in the past of us. So revisiting old structures, old patterns that we are confronted with quite a while already. Some things that we haven't been able to overcome over a longer period of time, like this. And even often in this period, we are meeting with old persons, so to say, now being that that will reflect, that for us has the symbolic meaning, that stands for us, that kind of mirror this unresolved or unfulfilled lesson in our life. It can be a person, it can be kind of a type of event, archetypical structure of events that usually brings forth in our being these kind of scenarios. For example, I don't know, if we meet again with our family, and this always brings some patterns in us up, so to say, or so on, something, according, or an old friend, because we thought maybe we are so advanced spiritually already, but then we meet an old friend and suddenly we behave exactly as we used to in the past, or something like this. Can be more subtle also. Can be, if you, for example, have a type of pattern. For example, you find yourself again in a large crowd of people as an archetypical event, large crowd of people, and there you are confronted with, for example, the tendency, okay, here I'm not feeling as relaxed and I cannot let go fully of my patterns, so to say. I cannot fully surrender into the ocean of the people of like this, to let go. So the question which Saturn is asking often is, where am I stuck to surrender to the cosmic will? Here already the term surrender is very Piscean, so it's much more related to Saturn and Pisces. But the integration, this is more a universal Saturn term, into the cosmic will. This is related with all the 12 zodiac signs. Doesn't matter which sign Saturn is, because the integration to the cosmic will is one of the jobs of Saturn. Because as I was telling you, it's the border, so to say, the border control, the border police of individual consciousness towards universality. As you see also behind Saturn, they are beginning the transpersonal planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So transpersonal realities in that sense. And in the moment that we are able to overcome our individuality, this is the moment when we will be able to integrate ourselves much more into the godly rhythm, to the godly timing, so to say, and integrate into the godly will, the cosmic will. So this is what is ahead of us, this Saturn retrograde period. So I will just take a few moments to drink, and you can think if you have a question already. All right, are you still with me? Because in the setup, I don't see you. I think also.
Yes, we are.
Perfect. Someone else is entering. Amazing. All right. Then we are still on track. So let's move on towards Neptune and Pisces and its meaning. Just checking the time. All right. So Neptune in Pisces. So now we'll look at the other, let's say, player here that is involved in this double stationary moment of Neptune and Pisces, and looking a bit at what this cycle is about. The Neptune cycle is, of course, much larger than Saturn, because it's much further away from the Sun, and thus its cyclic movement is a much larger one, obviously. And it is here, we can see it's in Pisces already since 2011, so quite a while. And planets that are longer period of time in a certain sign, they are accumulating more occult power, we can say. They have more influence on a universal scale. This is why these Neptune cycles, they are very relevant for the development of society, for example, of the planet, of the transformational processes that are happening on a more global scale like this. They're very relevant. And it's also coming to an end, and actually quite in sync. A bit before Saturn, it will move into Aries, but as we can see, kind of this new chapter of Neptune and Aries, and then Saturn and Aries, they are doing it in unison together, and this will be another longer period again that will stay in Aries. First of all, the planet Neptune, what it is about. The planet Neptune, in fact, has a very close connection to the sign of Pisces. It's even called its home there. So the energy, the archetype of Pisces and the archetype of Neptune, they are very much alike. And this is why it feels very home there, we can say. And it's even thus, even though, let's say, it's just more amplified. When the planet is home, it can express its natural energy a bit better, so to say, when it's in a sign which is from its archetype a bit different than the planet itself. So when Neptune is in Pisces, actually the Neptunian influence, it's much stronger for this period of time, and it's very perceivable also in the course kind of development of our society that is happening. So the planet Neptune describes in our being the capacity for us to unite with the cosmic consciousness. Neptune is in fact the higher octave of the personal planet Venus. And Venus is very much in connection with love, with harmony, with beauty. But on an individual level, Venus is talking about the interconnectivity of two people, the relationship they're forming. So when we take this Venusian love on a higher octave of an universal octave, so to say, what we have is cosmic love, sublime universal love. The love from the creation towards the creator and reverse. This state of devotion, or as we say, bhakti, is very, very deeply related with Neptune. To invoke this in us, this capacity to fully offer ourselves to God in that sense. This is the capacity in ourselves, what Neptune reflects. Someone who has awakened in their being, the resonance with Neptune, we can call him a saint. So it really, like when we study our individual chart, it is more recommended actually to a bit overlook the transpersonal planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We have to be a bit careful here because, of course, they play an important role. They have very significant things to say. And especially if we'll look into certain karmic structures in our being and especially our path towards God, they play very important roles. But let's say if we talk about someone who is not on the spiritual path, their influence in our being is almost zero. It's very, very little in that sense, because it only awakens once we are concerned with universality, with everything that is beyond our individual consciousness. So someone who is fully awakened in Neptune resonance is really someone who is a very, very devoted person towards God and has awakened a very, very universal, divine love beyond any kind of need to be loved or like this, just a love without object, a very selfless type of love. So this is really what we can call to be a saint in that regard. So on a universal scale, Neptune also reflects the universal subconscious in a way. Everything which is a bit hidden under like this, but also on a universal scale, the universal movement towards a more sublime spiritual type of reality. Of course, this now that we're in Kali Yuga, this is always in relation, moving in its own speed, but we are in the end of Kali Yuga, so the speed is accelerating a bit, and opening towards spirituality is becoming more relevant. And actually, the cycle that we're talking about between Saturn and Neptune, this is the cycle that is actually bringing the spirituality also in the hierarchical structures of society, of towards governmental structures and so on, because this is what Saturn is about, to bring things into manifestation. And here we have a quite interesting opposition, we can say, because Pisces is the formless, to move back into the formless. And Saturn is very concrete in a way. So how to bring the formless into the concrete, to bring the spirit into matter, and even to make the structures of our society much more aligned with the godliness in that sense. And this is kind of this dance of, even though they don't make an exact conjunction right now, but the dance together at the moment, kind of the teasing of their meeting that will happen. It's like when two lovers meet, and even before, like the week before, they're sending each other sweet notes and like this kind of anticipating, creating this anticipation of their meeting in the sense. And this, you can say, is happening, what is happening right now. This kind of very synchronized cycle of Saturn and Neptune being together in the same moment, going retrograde, and kind of finalizing the cycle. And of course, here I gave a few notions about Pisces again: surrender, universality, integration into the absolute. As you can see, they are quite mirroring each other, Neptune and Pisces. So also this Neptune cycle is coming to an end, heading towards 2025 and 2026 for this new moment when it's moving to Aries. And for sure, I will do another, when it's not a video, I will do webinar or whatever it is when it comes towards the actual conjunction of Neptune and Saturn, because this is really a big happening. It is on a scale as big as the last big Saturn event, which was Saturn meeting Pluto in 2020. And you see from the scale what happened, what was kind of bringing to rolling in 2020, all with COVID and everything, the pandemic, what the kind of was, what stones started to roll there. This is the kind of size that we are waiting in 2025 and 2026 when Saturn and Neptune meet. So talking about this retrograde period of Saturn, of Neptune right now, which is starting actually only on the 2nd of July. But the stationary period for Neptune is of course much wider than for Saturn, because it's a much longer cycle. So it's a very slow moving turtle, so to say. To move in the opposite direction, it makes this a loop. So the stationary period is also longer. So actually this is why they are meeting right now together in a stationary moment. But then the retrograde period will last actually until the 7th of December. So it's a bit of a longer period as well, but only a month longer. So it's very much synchronized with Saturn. In this period, as I said, the retrograde periods, they're always a moment of reflection. When Neptune is asking us to reflect, it's about the reflection of our connection towards God, of our actual relationship towards God, of the amount of love, so to say, that we actually have towards God. And it's asking us, what is holding us back to fully let go, to give ourselves fully? What is it that some people are saints and some aren't? And where am I standing right now? There. What is, let's say, that what really binds me in this individuality, in this individual consciousness, that is not letting my heart all the time as a continuous stream surrender towards the absolute, towards the source where I'm coming from, towards the authentic, towards the true self that I am. Why am I so stuck in this very limited perspective of the wave? Why am I so almost proud of the type of wave that I am? Or why am I mean, pride is one thing, but why am I so concerned with the type of wave that I am. That's another thing that letting us getting stuck in this individual perspective. Another question that is happening in this retrograde period is where do we rather escape of the suffering than letting go, like truly letting go in a healthy way, so to say, in an authentic way, because that's this Neptunian dark side, as I was describing before, of Pisces and of Neptune, escapism, so to say. Where am I maybe overwhelmed with suffering in that sense? And this is why I try to numb down. I try to not think about it. I try to put it aside or whatever it is. And what was holding me back to fully actually confront with it and just offering it and letting it go. And here also implies the same thing in this period now until the 7th of December. It's very likely that we are confronted with past scenarios and actions that will bring this topic forth in a sense. And as it's very much kind of in union with the Saturn cycle, it will come a bit with this harshness, a bit. So it's good to not judge it, just to see it as it is. And if we're aware of it, it becomes much less harsh, because Saturn has this type of, pushing a bit the buttons, piercing a bit into the wound, let's say, for us to actually make us take actions. When it would be only Neptune in retrograde without the Saturn aspect to it, it would be a bit more soft, smooth sailing. But some aspects that can occur during such a Neptunian retrograde phase are strong attachments to past traumas and certain past experiences that were difficult for us, especially on the level of the heart, which kind of confront us with our capacity to fully love, as I said, because Neptune is the high octave of Venus. And to access Neptune first, we'll have to access it through individual love. The love towards God is really accessible only if we are, let's say, good on the individual scale of loving. So if there are some tension or some unresolved things on that level, this is what has to be addressed first. So often in this period, and when Neptune goes retrograde, we are confronted also with past relationships or past relationship dramas, or in that relationship that we're in right now, certain patterns that are still unresolved and so on, because this is needed to look at and to resolve and to let go, to then actually make the step towards the love, towards the ultimate, like this. Because if you say I love God, but then you're not fully loving towards another human, then there is something that's not really right here, like this. And then there's some mind activity involved that you put as an image of what it means to love God, but it's not the full potential that you're capable of, because otherwise it would be mirrored on the individual level, like this, because that person is a part of God, like this. And yes, the last point here is we were, so to say, reflecting upon where we were neglecting godliness. That's an interesting aspect as well, because Neptune, the resonance with Neptune shows us where we can, or how we can see the godliness in everything, the state of transfiguration, and to really feel like God is everywhere. And it reminds me very much of this story of Ramakrishna, the sage who was adoring the Mother Kali so much, and he was seeing Kali in all aspects of life, and even he was working as a priest in a Kali temple, and he was giving them the offerings that they just were about to make a ceremony towards Kali, and he was feeding the offerings towards the cat outside of the temple because he will see Kali in that cat, and then of course offering to Kali the food. And this shows, and of course one of the other priests, he was very angry with the guy and like completely, how could you feed our offerings to this cat? And but then the elderly priest who knew of the authenticity of the adoration and devotion of him, said, no, let him be, like let him be. He's truly adoring Kali fully. So this is kind of what the resonance with Neptune describes, that you see the godliness actually in all aspects. And what is preventing us from seeing this? Why are we in some situations of life, of daily life, so to say, feeling like God is not present at all? Like this, I don't feel this is a holy moment in this moment. Why is it so? What kind of perspective we have to switch here? Like this, why are we so narrowed down? And maybe it is connected with certain things that happened in our past. And this is also what this retrograde period of Neptune is kind of invoking in us. So now to the actual question and kind of the why am I doing this little webinar here for you and for the people who will see the recording later on. Yeah, because it is very good to know about these things, to use it practically, to actually apply it and this is the way how to use astrology in your daily life. You become aware of these energies and influences, and then you align yourself with these rhythms of time. In this exact moment, as these two planets are stationary, and as I said, these energies are very, very amplified, it is a perfect moment of forming intention that is in accordance with the, let's say, the job, the mission of Saturn and Neptune, and in accordance with the kind of typology, with the archetype that is happening in this part of their cycle. So sending out an intention very clearly in these days, right now, today would be still very good, regarding your highest aspiration in relation with God, in relation with the cosmic consciousness. So if you feel truly inside, I'll just quickly check, is everything good? If you feel truly inside, okay, what is my aspiration in relation with the thing that is bigger than me? If I could call it God or whatever, Shiva, Shakti, whatever it is, Allah, whatever it is, what is my aspiration there? And you can be authentic. Maybe it's not the aspiration to become a saint and fully surrender, but maybe you have partial aspirations, maybe just to feel him a bit more in your heart for now. Maybe this is your aspiration, but try to aim the aspiration as high as you can reach at the moment, as long as it still feels in alignment with your heart. Like this, it has to feel authentic. It's not, you cannot just put in aspiration, well, you can, but it doesn't have so much force to put an aspiration which you think is the right one because you read it in some books and some wise people were telling you this is how it should be, but then it has very little of value for yourself. Reach as high as you truly feel the impulse in your heart and form this intention. I will reach there, like this. And I want to reach there because I will give all my best, employing all my willpower to reach there, and asking the subtle help of all the beneficial entities that want to help you, and asking especially the help of Neptune and Saturn in this regard, and of God, of course, to reach that aspiration. And right now, it is like a portal is opening to connect with these archetypes of Neptune and Saturn very strongly through the stationary moment. And this is why so to say, the conversation can be established, like the subtle link, if you want, if you try. And this is what an intention is. It is like sending out a request, like this, we can say. And then it will be much more likely that it is heard, we can say like this. And then in the same regard, sending out the intention to what habits and beliefs you want to let go, that is holding you back of this full integration and this full surrender, like this. And for this, of course, it is helpful to know what are these habits, but in most cases we know because we are confronted so many times with it. But it's good to take a moment of just crystallization, taking your pen and a piece of paper and just crystallizing what are these habits, so to say, what are these beliefs that are holding me back, to just word it out, to become clear with it, and then sending out the intention. And even if you just take these 3 to 5 minutes of sending out this intention, I tell you, it is worthwhile. And then after you send out the intention, it is, I would recommend, I did it today and it was very, very amazing to take this moment of just remaining in this state of giving yourself towards the heart of God. And because through this Piscean influence, there's also a certain portal towards the heart of God in this moment. So it's a very good moment also for intense spiritual practice in the stationary moments, because it's a grace moment where we can integrate ourselves into the will of God, into the heart of God. That's very powerful to do right now in this moment. Now, how to use this impulse during the retrograde period that is following after? Because as I said, this moment where it's stationary, these two planets, is only the beginning phase of the retrograde period that is following after. So for Saturn, it is until the mid of November, and for Neptune, it is until the beginning of December. And as I was mentioning before, but kind of just to synthesize again, becoming aware of, or it's a reflective process. That's a retrograde period. That's the best thing you can do. In this next few months, it's a bit more emphasized on a reflective internal process. It doesn't mean to just lay down all your activities and just go and retreat for this period, even though if by grace you have this opportunity, I would highly recommend, at least for some period of time, to do so, because retrograde periods always are supporting this internalization process. So retreating is actually quite beneficial in that regard. But of course, it just can happen also in the background, so to say, of your daily activities and duties that you have anyway, to reflect upon the past, to become aware of these repetitive situations that are always reflecting unresolved karmas, and especially these ones that are related with our capacity to surrender and integrate ourselves into the godly will. And what is helpful is to really focus on the areas which are the most difficult for you, because of course most of us have many challenging areas in our life, but there are some that pierce through a bit, that are a bit more difficult, and these are kind of the loopholes or the bottlenecks, and if we focus the intention there, then the bigger the transformation, of course, like that. So let's check the time. I think we're a bit over it already. Someone was even writing something. Let's see. Thank you, very inspiring. I'm happy. That was the intention, to inspire, not for me, but because I got inspired. I received some wave of inspiration that it just was hitting my eye. So I felt I just kind of redirect the wave of inspiration towards the people that want to hear about it. Now I have a gift for you, and only for you. Well, the people that will see this
We cannot hear you now. We cannot hear you now, Leonard. Hallo. Cannot hear you.
Lenny, wir hören dich nicht.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I don't know what happened. I got kicked out of my own meeting or something. All right.
The last things we heard were that you're giving us a gift, and then we couldn't hear you anymore for quite a few minutes.
You didn't get what kind of gift? That's unfortunate.
No,
I hope the people
No.
are still here. So I was saying, because it is very useful to study your own chart. And for some people that know astrology, of course, they can do it by themselves to see how this period is affecting themselves. But for the ones that need a bit of assistance maybe and want to use some guy like me that does astrology readings, I have a coupon code for you, the person that are here in this webinar, which you can use on my website. And it's for 55% off on astrological consultations. It's only for 2 weeks I give it, and only for the people that are in this webinar and the ones that listen to the recording. You can use it for yourself, or for if you want to give it to a friend, if you say maybe this guy needs it. And yes, I'm offering individual consultations and couple consultations. So even if you're not sure yet, make a screenshot now or write the code somewhere, and also the website, because I will not share it anywhere else again. So I give you a short moment.
You have to share again. We don't see.
You don't see?
At least I don't. I don't know if the others.
No, I don't see either.
I'm sorry. Then now you will be able to make the screenshot. No, you have it? You see it?
Yes,
Yes.
now it's visible.
All right, super. So please write it down. It's going only for 2 weeks from now. So towards, I think, the 14th of July is this applicable. So even if you want to give someone a birthday gift or something, you can use this as an opportunity. Yes. So if you want to study in your own chart how this period is affecting you, or even some other questions, but I wanted to give you this opportunity. All right. Then, enough of advertisement. Let's have Q&A. If you want to say, I mean, we're over the time already, but I just want to give the space for now. I was talking straight through. If you have any question or you want to look back into some areas or something, I give you a bit of a moment to think about it. And if you can, yeah.
You need a moment to think about it, or we can say something.
No. My mind is clear. Please, you can think about it if you want.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for the gift and for the lecture. And two questions. The one a little bit on the side. So you said 25, 26 is the next astrological moment where like something big, like back then in 2020 happened with Corona and everything. So did I understand that correctly? That will come something like this in the next 2 years again?
Yes, in a different time, in a different way, because when Corona started, Pluto was involved, and Pluto has a bit of a force of destruction, let's say, and you know, it's usually Pluto, for example, is related with things like a pandemic and so on, these kind of things, with death, for example. And Neptune has a bit of a different type, different style to it. And Saturn and Neptune will meet. And it will happen in a tighter conjunction. First, in 2025, they will have a conjunction which is within half a degree. So they're not touching exactly, but they come very close together. So it will already be quite strong. And then in 2026, they will go fully together. So it will kind of be like two hit impulse of something. And as I said, the last time that this happened was when the Berlin Wall was falling. So to give you a bit of a scale comparison, and it's from the type of event that is about to happen, it's something that is where a structure, so to say, is realigning itself to a more spiritually aligned way. So where things unite back. Yeah.
And we know what month in 2025?
In 2025, I have to wait. I was writing it even here. So July.
In 1 year.
In 1 year, yeah. In March, there's they come quite close to the North Node, but they don't form the conjunction. But yeah, so July 25th, July 2025, and then in February 2026 is the exact moment. Yes.
Thank you. And the other question was if you can repeat once more, like the spiritual practice that you recommend, like, okay, setting a conscious intention for something best now after the seminar. And then you also said it's a good moment for retreat. And was there something else you said about the specific spiritual practices that you would recommend?
Yes, I mean, so right now, so in this period where they are stationary, so I would say as a time frame, actually yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and maybe even the day after tomorrow. So in these few days, it is so one thing to form this intention, but the other thing is just to consciously, actively give ourselves as much as we're able to God, basically, into the heart of God. So any practice that is helping us to do that, just straight up, so to say, because that's the influence of Neptune together with Saturn. They are able to bring, as I said, the formless into manifestation, to actually make it concrete, to not make it anymore kind of a dream that we read in some autobiography of some advanced yogis or whatever. Like this, it actually can become a portal that is opening to make it reality. This very universal, transcendent love. And this is why to connect with this state of love towards God would be very good. Prayer, for example, is amazing also. And but anything, strong meditation and lovemaking, of course, with elevated love, directed as the only purpose to unite with God. These things I would say are very good.
Thank you very much, Danny.
You're welcome, Bryn. All right. Anyone else? Something on the heart? See?
Yes, my question would be about gifts, whether it can be used of any of your consultations or within a specific topic.
No, any.
Any.
Anyway, like a booking, book consultation is just a general type of thing, and then no, it doesn't have to be related with the Saturn Neptune. It can be related with anything like this. You're just the lucky ones now again that are in the webinar. So as you can see, it's very beneficial to join the webinars. There's always waiting something. Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Lenny.
All right. Super. Then, thank you for joining our little team of astrology enthusiasts on the Sunday, and I wish you I don't want to keep you longer. Wish you a wonderful rest of Sunday and a wonderful rest of the stationary moment, and then a good phase of retrograde Saturn and Neptune. Take care, and already next week, and I will do the next webinar actually. As I said, about the Dharma in your astro chart. So if you want, you can join this as well. Same time, next Sunday. All right, then I will write more in the group also about it. Take care, all of you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Bye.
Bye.